What's up, Nitty? How are you?
I'm doing okay. How are you?
I'm fantastic, man. I think we got your face on all kinds of stuff right now. We got you on the Facebook Live. We got you on the Instagram Live. We're just we're live. We're everywhere.
Watch your views go up because of this.
They better.
You're welcome.
That sounds like a commitment. All right, so Nitty, this is the 20-minute showdown. First thing we're going to do is we're going to tier a 90-second version of your story. Like, hey, who is Nitty? Tell everyone what it is. What's up? Enjoy ya. We got all kinds of countries today joining us, brother. I counted 7 or 8 countries already, which is pretty cool. So why don't you tell everyone your 90-second version of your story, and then I'll do mine, and then we'll hit 3 questions both ways. Over to you.
Fantastic. No, thanks, Nick. Everyone, my 90-second story. I am Nick's favorite friend in the whole world.
That's true.
So it's facts. But I'm an entrepreneur. By way of background, I've been a healthcare investment banker my entire career. Prior to that, my brother and I kind of accidentally went into entrepreneurship and opened restaurants and bars in Dallas. So I helped him launch a few restaurant companies that we did quite well in the Dallas, Texas area. And then we launched a company called Crowdpoint about a couple of years ago. Crowdpoint is it's a decentralized cloud and infrastructure company. Nick has been a fantastic supporter of Crowdpoint. Thank you, Nick. And so coming into entrepreneurship is that's my blood. That's my blood. It's who I am. Is being a business advisor, transaction advisor, being a entrepreneur, running a investment bank, running a technology company, and then just working with like-minded people. So
nice.
A lot of what I do is a lot faith-driven. So I'm highly motivated and spiritual in that regard too. So that's me.
Great backstory. Everybody, welcome Nitty to the dance. Give this man a follow. By the way, invite some people to the live here. Share this like crazy. Here's what I want to do to get started. I'm going to tell my quick backstory, brother, and then I'm going to ask you a question. So my quick backstory is, guys, I'm from Michigan originally, super blue-collar, middle-class upbringing. I got introduced to direct sales networking when I was 18 years old. I was terrible at sales. I was terrible at sales leadership. I was terrible at building my own little business, etc. But I went on and I had a great run. By year 5, 6, and 7, became a millionaire at 25. I bought the assets of the company that I was a part of. I bought the assets, started my own company, ran it to a couple billion in sales with bees, and sold the company, bought it back, sold it again, and now I have a sales accelerator in multiple different verticals. So here is my first question for Nitty. So, guys, Nitty has a very, very diverse background from a business perspective. You've been an executive at a very high level for a company that you did not own. And then you've been an executive and as an entrepreneur of a company that you're a co-founder of. Talk to the people out there today who are maybe high-level employees. They make great money, who have been considering entrepreneurship, but they're afraid of that jump because they got that cushy salary. They're doing good. What does it feel like? Both pros and cons. What's the differences? Talk to me about that jump from executive, corporate, someone else's company, to executive in your own company. Over to you.
Yeah, that's a great question. So pros and cons of making that jump. I think the greatest is having the freedom, right? It's having the fidelity to make your own decisions. You set your schedule. You are the captain of your own ship, and there's a lot of strength that one can derive from being in that position, versus being an employee or being although being a high level executive and working for someone else grants you some level of autonomy. At the end of the day, you are still reporting to someone, and so being your own boss, you really, number one, you learn a ton about yourself. You unlock superpowers that you may not have known that you had. I know that was my experience, and but here's that. The cons. There are a number of cons as well, right? It is a very, very stressful job. Taking care of not only yourself, being responsible for yourself and your family, but then being responsible for your employees and their families. Right? That's a lot of stress that I honestly am still learning to deal with, because I take on a lot of stress and it manifests in different ways in my life. As I was telling Nick, I'm literally sitting in a hospital lobby right now after a slew of tests over the past 2 days. So it's a risk tolerance thing, right? But it's really, at the end of the day, there's nothing better than betting on yourself, right? So that's the joy of being an entrepreneur, is you get to bet on yourself and be the captain of your own ship.
So this does not count as question number 2. It's just a little follow-up. Do you recommend making the jump if you have the risk tolerance? Do you like it better being an entrepreneur executive as opposed to a traditional employee executive?
Yeah. So I would not give a blanket recommendation for that. What I would do is say, and this is the transaction.
Very safe
advisor.
answer. It's a very safe.
No, I mean, look, I'll tell you this: the investment banker in me has to give balanced advice. That's just that's my profession, right? So I would say this: make the jump if you have the skills and the wherewithal to do it. But before you make the jump, make sure you have a solid plan. It's not just don't just dive into entrepreneurship thinking that you can cowboy your way through it and be a maverick and just figure stuff out.
Nice.
No, you have to be methodical and come up with a solid plan, right? And not just a business plan, but there are other plans that you should come up with, your personal finances, your emergency situations. Come up with a good group of advisors. We'll make an announcement about that in the near future about advisory services, but make sure that you establish the right people around you first, then make the plunge.
Beautiful. Okay, so I'm ready. What's my first question, brother?
All right. So this is a compound question, and it's a tough one. Nick, you are one of my closest friends in the whole world. How do you properly pronounce my full name?
This doesn't count as one of the questions. Nadab Akhtar, but I don't know the middle seven names in the middle.
Nadab Akhtar.
Oh, Omar. Okay, I didn't know that part. Okay, yeah. But I do have your ability to marry people license. I have your license downstairs. All right.
So that didn't count as a question. But here's the opening question for you. I've heard you talk a lot about freedom and joy since I've had the pleasure to get to know you the past few years. What is, if you were to pick one moment and let's isolate it, one moment in the past 3 years since we've met, what is your greatest moment of joy?
I'm actually going to say when I had a chance to speak at Break the Code, and which is not a new thing to speak in front of a couple thousand people, but to have my kids up there educating, not just Giovanna's been on stages as big as 15,000 when she was little, 1, 2, 3 years old. But to see them mastering information and educating adults, that was probably my favorite moment in the last 3 years. You can kind of call it work because it was a speaking engagement, even though it wasn't purely my company, my business, or my event. Does that count?
Yeah. No, that's beautiful. I love that. That definitely counts.
Okay, I'll take it then. All right, I'm going to hit you with a hard one.
All right.
You want a hard one?
I mean, not really, but I have no choice. I signed up for this.
You're like, I'm already at the hospital.
Yeah.
Okay. So I have the pleasure of knowing your story and your family's story because of our closeness. And I know that you were born and raised in Dallas, Texas, or in Texas. Maybe it's Houston, moved to Dallas. I know that you're very highly educated. I know that your father is a pastor of a Christian church. Is that in Houston or is help become that
pastor? My uncle was a pastor, and my late uncle and my dad was an elder and leader of the church.
Correct. But your family's very tied in to the Christian church out there in Texas. However, in your journey, you've ran across a lot of assholes. Yeah. I'm just going to say that on your behalf.
Yeah.
How have you dealt with issues of racism in business, knowing that you're as, if not more American than most people who consider themselves to be American, just because your family of grandparents or great grandparents or whatever are Pakistani, but you're born and raised in Texas. You got boots. You got snake boots.
Yeah.
You got the one star flag. You've got family that opened its own church, and all of these like judgments and prejudgments of people. How have you been able to deal with that in business?
Yeah. Actually, that's a powerful question for me in particular. I'll tell you this, so Irich, I call E. He and I had a restaurant in Flower Mound, Texas, and this is a restaurant that was floating on the lake. It was half. You could access by boat or by car. It was on the marina. I want to say that restaurant. This was like 2011, 2012. Like, I felt so much racism there, and I don't pull the racism card often. I'm not overly sensitive about it, but let me tell you, in the restaurant bar business, like, I was so disenchanted by some of the customers that would come in. They knew I was a owner or partner in the restaurant, and there were folks, like, I literally remember it's happened multiple times, like not just one time. I think it happened 3 times where I'm standing at the host stand, like, saying, "Hey, thanks for coming, have a great night." And the show The Simpsons.
Yeah.
And there was that gas station owner who I wasn't allowed to watch The Simpsons, so I'm not super familiar with the context, but I do know that that character had an Indian or Pakistani accent in the show, right? And one of his famous lines was like saying "Thank you, come again" in the South Asian accent. And there were multiple occasions where folks came when I'm being so kind and saying, "Hey, thanks for coming, have a great night, come back and see us." They say that line to me, right? And the first time it happened, my hostess looked at me and she's like, "Oh," and she's doing these, saying like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "What happened?" And she's like, "Oh, you didn't hear him?" And I'm like, "No, what did he say?" And so she tells me what he said, and I was shocked. I'm like, "What? No way someone said that." I was like, "You must have misheard." It happened a second time. Then it happened a third time. Then I literally remember one time a customer was arguing with me over his not liking a cheeseburger, and I said, "Okay, no problem. Like, well, you ate like 3/4 of the cheeseburger. You must have liked it, right?" And I said, "Well, look like let me buy you a drink to make up for it." All right, send him a round of drinks, and still he gets in my he and his daughter and the daughter's boyfriend get so upset when they're like coming in, like getting into my face, wanting to physically fight me, and calling me all sorts of words like that I probably shouldn't say on this live feed, right? Like racial slurs, and I was blown away, absolutely blown away, and I thought, I don't want to be in this business anymore. And, I stopped going. I stopped going to the restaurants. I talked to Ian and our other business partner, Reese, and I said, "Guys, I'm done." Like, I'd gotten in a couple of fights where customers literally called me a terrorist. They called me a Sam, the N word. They called me all sorts of things, and like, I didn't even say anything to you. Why are you saying stuff to me? And so I got really disenchanted in that business. I want to say in investment banking and the technology business that we're in now, whether dealing with educated or not so educated or not sophisticated investors, clients, never felt it. So I don't know if it's an industry thing, but I'm really, really pleased and blessed that in this new career that I have, I've never felt it. In fact, like my clients used to joke that we probably garnered some premium valuation because folks would think, "Oh, this guy knows math. This guy's smart, right?"
Smart.
Exactly. So it probably worked in my favor. including here, right? I mean, you know, with Crowdpoint, we've done a number of international deals.
Yeah.
So for me, being able to build that cultural bond has been quite advantageous to the company as well.
And we got a little comment there from Adam saying he loves this question. I know it's a tough question, but I know it's something we've talked about before, so I felt comfortable asking with you. So thank you for answering. I appreciate you.
Yeah, my turn for the question.
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right, Nick. Been, you know, in the field, in the war zone, I guess, of entrepreneurship your entire career, right? You've had some ups and downs and have learned a ton of lessons. You know, what would you say is your greatest failure as an entrepreneur? And it's a compound question. What did you learn from it?
Oof. Okay. So I'm wondering if this is one I can say on the live, but okay, I can. I'll just bottle this. I'll package it correctly. So, I allowed the behavior of a close friend to have dramatic impact on a really successful business, and didn't take the correct action from a business perspective to replace them because of the relationship of brotherhood and friendship. And that then had a very dramatic ripple effect around everyone in and around the company in every single role. So the failure there was not doing what was right for company, but doing what was right for friend or relationship. And it had a very negative ripple effect inside of every aspect of the business. I think I packaged that correctly. And then I think you said, what would I do differently?
Or what did you learn from? I mean, but yes, like
what I learned from it is you have to have a hierarchy of what is most important, and if there's a company with employees and investors and 1099s and there's lots of people associated to it, the relationship or the individual cannot be more important than the company or the team. And I think that was a major mistake that had a significant ripple effect to possibly thousands of people. Tough question to answer in the public setting.
No, but I think your answers were very helpful and are very insightful.
I think it's because you asked what was the biggest. If you just said what was one, I would have picked something else. But when you said what was the biggest mistake, it's definitely the biggest mistake.
Got it. Well, appreciate.
All right, number 3. Yeah, absolutely. You said you're going to give me easy ones. That was an easy one. All right, so let's go back to you. You got 3 characteristics or attributes that you can give anyone watching this right now. And because you're so diverse, you've been successful as an entrepreneur, you've been successful as an executive for someone else's company, you've been successful as an executive for your current company, you're brilliant, you got, you're like that beautiful gray hair now, you're like the interesting man in the world, what are 3 characteristics that anyone must follow if they want to be successful in anything they do? Education, relationship, business, becoming a great executive. 3 characteristics that they must have.
Yeah. Number 1 is grit. If you have grit, you can unlock anything, right? Grit is it's that tenacity, it's that perseverance, it's that continuous drive to accomplish your goals, right? There's a lot of folks that I can't believe I forgot the name. A very famous psychologist that studied hundreds of successful entrepreneurs over. You know which book I'm talking about? You and I have talked about it.
I know which book you're talking about.
Yeah.
Hang on, I'll give you the answer in 1 second.
Yeah. But she talked about like what is the defining characteristic or common characteristic in successful people? It's grit, and it could be that grit is it could be applied in your professional career, obviously, but even in your personal career, or sorry, your personal life, whether it's family, romantic relationships, friendships, right? It takes perseverance, it takes energy and input to make any of your inputs into successful outputs, right? And so it takes that focus.
Angela Duckworth.
Yes, Angela Duckworth. I knew it started with an A. Fantastic book, Joel. I should definitely read it. Nick, what's the title?
Grit.
There you go. So grit. All right. Second characteristic is I personally believe you have to have a thirst for knowledge. You have to have this like yearning desire to continually improve yourself, and that could that doesn't necessarily mean traditional education. It's like even I'm 33. I turned 34 in about 41 days, but it's continuous learning. Like I just downloaded some textbooks last night saying, all right, like I want to improve my investment banking skills. Like I want to learn about decentralized cloud. So I'm constantly learning, and I see a lot of that from like my brother who's ordering probably 5-10 books a week and continually learning. Right, so you have to have this thirst for knowledge and want to improve your situation constantly.
Great one.
Thanks. Third is like you have to. How do I say this? I think it's important to be kind, but also be strong, right? And so I'm not sure how to sum that up, but you can be. I guess maybe a better way to say that is know your values. When you know your values, then how you interact with any situation or any person becomes more of a clinical decision versus an emotional decision. Because let's say that part of your values are to be strong and stick to your truths, right? Well, then you won't be put into situations where your kindness or your emotions might outweigh your logic, and then force you to make decisions that are suboptimal, right? And so sticking true to your values is paramount in importance. One of the ways that you can do that, by the way, is like some of the stuff that Nick talked about in some of your feeds and videos earlier this year, is to write down a plan. Right? Like journal your plan, write down your goals, your values, your personal mission statement. Right? When I first heard someone say that a number of years ago, I thought, they're full of it. Like that's silly. I don't need to do that. Well, then I did it. I did it when I was going through somewhat of a burnout period, and I saw writing number one like a yearly, like a 5-year, 10-year plan, then writing a 1-year plan, writing a 1-month plan, a 1-week plan, and writing daily plans. Man, that made a huge difference. And the book I was reading with that was High Performance Habits. And it really impacted me. I actually just started doing that again this morning. I'm like, well, you know what? Like, I got to optimize my performance. So
fantastic answer. I'm going to say it back to you guys, which is number one, grit. So the three characteristics for success in anything from Nitty are number one, grit. Number two, a thirst for knowledge. And number three, know your values. Stick to your values. And man, I appreciate that answer. Nitty, real quick, we have a heckler. Let me know if you want me to kick him off. He said you sound like a nerd. His name's Araj. I don't know if you know this guy.
No, it's okay. Let him pass. Haters gonna hate. The haters gonna hate. Yeah.
Sometimes they say the one's closest to you, even if they're your brother.
That's funny.
All right, I'm ready for the third and final. Hit me.
All right. Third and final question for you is one. So this will be another compound question. So you are someone who has not gone through traditional rounds of education. You champion alternative education even for even for your kids, and I've personally seen that. Number one, have you ever seen that as a hindrance or weakness in your ability as an entrepreneur, or like how folks interact with you? And number two, why do you still champion alternative education versus traditional, or maybe it's hybrid?
Great question. So I think number one, I definitely felt it in my late 20s, early 30s to say like, okay, I'm at the table with all these highly educated people that have these masters in finance and the all the different degrees, right? And I was a junior college dropout, and but I gained strength from one of my business partners was a high school dropout, and he had built a multi-million-dollar company, and then the other business partner I had was a top 6 university graduate with a double major. So it's kind of like I had this cool sandwich of both worlds. But it was the point where I stepped into my own strength as a leader and saw what I was able to do and create without anyone else's voice and the confidence that built, and realized, oh, wait a second, the greatest entrepreneurs employ the smartest people with all the degrees. And that's from that point on, I made it my mission to make sure that I always was partnered with or hiring or having consultants or figure out whatever term you want of the people that were the smartest in the room on specific topics. But that didn't mean that they had the vision or the wherewithal or the grit or the capacity to take whatever that idea was and make it something that can be brought out to the marketplace all across the world. So I understand the distinction between the knowledge necessary for ideas versus the knowledge necessary for bringing that idea into someone's home, and those are drastically different.
Beautiful, love that.
Well, team. Our 20-minute showdown, it lasted 28 minutes. We went long, and that's okay because, we had lots of wisdom today. Do me a favor, put in the comments what the number one thing was that you heard or learned, and share this if you can. If you're watching the replay right now, I should have said this earlier, put in their replay, give this man a join. Nitty, tell them where to find you, what they can do, and any action item you want them to take.
Yeah. Like and follow me on Instagram. My public feed is Nadab Akhtar, so that's NADAB.AKATAR. So you can follow me there. If you want to learn about Crowdpoint, you can go to crowdunit.com. That website is CRWDUNIT.com. So we do have an offering available where you can get involved with the company, but it's a great place to download white papers on what we're doing at Crowdpoint and how we're changing the game in terms of internet infrastructure. So some really powerful stuff there, but that's where you can subscribe and keep up to date with our company as well.
I recommend it. Go to crowdunit.com with no O, CRWD unit.com. I'm an investor. A bunch of my friends are investors. I believe in these guys. They're some of the smartest people I've ever worked with. He's a great friend. He's wise beyond his years. Get your ass back to Miami so we can hang out, buddy.
I'll see you this weekend. All right, brother.
Miss you, boss. Talk to you soon.